Welcome to Unit 6, Lesson 11, Bubble 7, C, Part 2. Okay, so we finished everything up through, um, number 4. Okay, the next thing we need to do, we've got our filtered list of gas prices for Chicago. We want to calculate the average. And we're going to do that in a very similar fashion that they calculated the average for Seattle. Okay, I'm going to make one adjustment just to show a different approach, but the way they show it is pretty clean and a little bit more complete. But I'm going to show you a little tweak as well. So I need to create a function. Okay, I'm going to call the function Chicago average. It's kind of weird. Sorry. Doing Chicago as lowercase, but that's how we do camel case. So Chicago average. That's our function. We get the yellow arrow because we haven't called it yet, or yellow triangle because we haven't called it yet. Now, what are the steps that we want to do? We want to create a variable that is going to be the total, and we can call that Chicago total. Okay, and it starts at initialized at 0. Okay, and we're going to want to do a loop to go through all the items in our filtered list, right? Because that's only going to be for the year that we want. Okay, and we're going to add. Okay, so you're free here. You'll notice that they use K here. They had another loop up above where they used I. They're just illustrating that we can use different variables, but the loops are going to be, unless you have one loop with another or nested loop, you can use the same lettering system. I could use I again, but just to carry the theme they're using, I'm going to use J here. Okay. And I want to go through the entire list. So we know we've done this lots of times. We're going to go through filtered Chicago. I have a real problem spelling today. Filtered Chicago dot length -1. Okay. So long as we're at the length -1, we will loop. Okay. What do we want to do in that loop? Well, they add, they create a temporary variable, and then to the price they add, they calculate, sorry, they take the given price for filtered Seattle K, and then they hold that in a variable price, and then in the line below 51, they add that to the total. So we have a running total. I'm going to do that in one line. Okay. I think their practice is great. I just want to illustrate the different way that we can do that. So we're going to do here, and we're going to say Chicago total. If I can spell, Chicago total gets the value of Chicago total total plus filtered Chicago J, because that's my iterator. Okay, and spell that correctly and try to make, I'm making a real dog's meal of this. Okay, so that's going to give me my total. And what do I want to do? Well, in this, I want to do everything. I want to create the, calculate the average. So I'm going to do that outside of the loop. I am going to take the short way of doing this just because that's such a long calculation, right? I'm going to do it I'm going to come here. I'm going to add a line, go back to show blocks. All right, I find it a little easier here. Oh, actually, might as well do it here. I'm copying that. Now, we know the names are all going to be messed up, right? It's not Seattle average. It's going to be Chicago average. Okay. And what we're going to do, calculate it, is we're going to go Chicago total, because that's my on line 64. That's the total that's keeping track of all of the gas prices. So I can calculate the average. And then I'm going to divide it by the number of items, the number of gas prices that are in the list. And that's filtered Chicago. Okay. I find the length of that. And this is just going to give me a nice rounded number. And the last thing that I need to do is I'm going to set the text here. Okay. And the way that we want to be able to set the text is we want Chicago to appear, and then below Chicago, we want the price. And again, for something like this, okay, I could drag it down or copy and paste. I'm going to do that just for expediency here. I'm going to put that right there, and I'm going to copy this line 56, which is just setting the text. Okay, set text, and I just have to change, that's the Chicago label. Okay, and this is the Chicago average. Just want to make sure that I'm consistent with my naming. Nice job, Jeff. Okay, and what I want to appear there is Chicago. Okay, and the slash n again gives us the line return. Okay, and we show blocks. And let's see why we have some of our yellows here. We have a yellow here because I spelt Chicago wrong. Okay, and you notice the message said, "Hey, I don't know what that is," and I looked at it and clearly saw my typo. Okay, now I have one more because I've defined this function. I haven't called it, and that's where I come back up here on line 27 and say add a call to the function. We have a call for Seattle average. It makes sense that the whole purpose here was to calculate the average for another city. So we're going to do Chicago average. Okay. And notice that my function call here is called Chicago average. I just want to point something out that down here on line 69, I called it Chicago av as a variable and not Chicago average because I didn't want to be confused between average as a function and average as a variable. It causes problems, certainly in your own mind. So I steer clear of doing that. Okay, let's give this code a run and see. Oh, I got to pick a year. 2017 was a good year. Okay, and I'm getting a price of 287 versus a price of 244. It seems to be working. It's formatting properly. Okay, in practice, I would, if I want to make sure that something's working, I may have actually taken the data and printed it out in a console log so I could look at it, or if it's too much data to actually eyeball, I could print it out, copy that into an Excel sheet, and calculate a quick average. And if I'm convinced that it's calculating properly, I know that my process is working and I could repeat it for Denver, New York, Los Angeles, Houston, and Miami. And that would be a nice practice. If you want more practice, going through these steps, try creating a average gas price for Denver or New York. So that's, you get lots of opportunity on some of these exercises to practice the skill. Anyway, thanks for sticking with me, and I will see you in class.